Tonight, hear the stunning new legal twist as a witness admits he lied on the stand in a grisly kidnapping case.
For the first time tonight, you're going to see a startling tape. Could it free a man who's now behind bars? 2020 begins right now.
Somebody has my daughter. They have kidnapped her. Please get everybody in the community out there.
Everybody trying to say, it's okay, Karen, this is all just a mistake. But see, they didn't know what I knew that morning.
Nursing student Holly Bobo, last seen being dragged away from her home by a man in camouflage.
She said, stop, leave me alone, stop. But she never called out his name.
Just hours after Holly Bobo disappeared, more than 400 people turned up here to search these woods.
Holly, I love you so much. Please try to get home to us.
I just remember it was madness. Cops everywhere, helicopters flying. It was already crazy.
We were looking at everybody. Everybody was looked at.
When did someone kind of pull away from the rest?
He said if somebody like him had got Holly, she's just a toy to him. And it's all fantasy world.
Dennis Benjamin says, there's a man on my porch who has just confessed to the kidnapping of Holly Bobo.
Do you think the jury got this one wrong?
Absolutely. Yep. Innocent people are in prison.
Please help us find her.
This is the Tennessee River. On its western bank is Decatur County, a patchwork of sparsely populated farms, dense woods, and neighbors who look out for each other.
It's a rural county with a cute little small town, Parsons. Very close to the Tennessee River.
A lot of cattle farming and crop farming.
Hunting, fishing, boating.
People that like to live out in the country, they have some animals or some horses.
There's not a lot of industry in Decatur County.
I start to say it might be compared to Mayberry, but it's nothing like that. We do have crime just like every other town in America, but we are rural. Everybody pretty much knows everybody. Everybody knew Holly and her family.
20-year-old Holly Bobo came from a loving family. She lived with her mother, Karen, father, Dana, and her older brother, 25-year-old Clint, in a home her dad built with his own hands.
It was your typical little single-story, 3 bedrooms. Kitchen was in the middle, kind of, and then a little small living room. And they had a carport there, which is a 2-car carport to the back of the house. They're typical middle-class, hard-working country folks. Holly's dad, he had an excavating business, and her mother was a school teacher.
Holly and I were very close, and we were about 5 years apart.
Holly was raised like my little sister, and Clint was like my little brother. We were always growing up together. We just lived in our own world. 2 kids in college. We had our church family, our family gatherings, went to the movies together, rode 4-wheelers together, rode horses.
The Bobo kids grew up with a sense of caring for their community. Clint is studying to become a social worker, and Holly is attending nursing school.
They're the best people on earth. That's what hurt so bad, that this happened to them. They didn't do anything that would have put them in harm's way of having this to happen. It just doesn't happen to people like them.
It was just a normal morning like anything else. Dana gets up first and gets ready.
Well, I usually go out and feed the dog.
Dana says Holly is already up, studying for a big test later that day.
I asked her if she needed any money, I think, for gas or whatever that day. She said, yeah, and I left her some money on the bar. I left out my regular time, 5:30 or something like that, and went on to work.
Karen wakes up a short time later.
So I went on about my business, getting ready. I'd packed her lunch like I always did. She was sitting at the kitchen table studying, and I kissed her goodbye and told her I loved her, just like every other morning. And I left.
Around 7:45, a neighbor was getting ready to go to work. He heard a scream from next door.
She said, stop, leave me alone, stop. But she never called out his name.
It made such an on him. He told his mother that he heard somebody screaming over at the Bobo's house.
That neighbor calls Karen Bobo at work, worried, saying, "We heard a scream coming from your house."
That's just not a call you get every day, so I instantly knew something was wrong.
Holly's brother Clint, who is asleep in the house, doesn't hear the scream, but he wakes up to the family dog, Rascal, barking.
He just continued to bark, so I decided to get up, to see what he was barking at. As I was approaching that window, I heard people talking, voices. I could tell it was a male and a female voice. I never was able to really tell what they were saying.
There's a side window next to the kitchen that faces the carport, which of course is an open carport.
Clint looks into the carport and he sees Holly and another person kneeled down in a catcher stance.
So I could see enough to tell that it was Holly and a man in camouflage who I identified as Drew, who is her boyfriend.
At first he thought it was Holly and her boyfriend and they were arguing. He didn't want to get involved in it, so he stepped away and let them do whatever they were doing. At that point, he sent his mom a text and asked, "Does Holly not have school today?"
And I said, "Well, her and Drew are out here in the garage." I expected Drew to be dressed in camouflage because Drew and I had talked the night before, and he told me he was going turkey hunting that morning.
But there were some things that Clint didn't know that his mother knew. Drew was at least 30 minutes drive away.
Drew was hunting on my mom's property in southern Decatur County.
Right away, her instincts told her that's terribly wrong.
I would say like 20 seconds later, I received a phone call from her. She says, "Call all the neighbors." "Oh my God, Clint, that's not Drew."
I said, "That's not Drew. Get a gun and shoot him."
Miss Karen is saying, "Shoot him, get your gun and shoot him." He's like, what are you talking about? You want me to shoot Drew? He just woke up. He wasn't comprehending everything that was going on.
And I said, "So you want me to shoot Drew?" And I think that's when she must have hung the phone up.
I just hung up, and I collapsed to the floor.
He said he went and got his gun, and he looked out the back window of the kitchen, and he saw that Holly was walking with a man in camouflage.
At that point is when I could see them. They were walking towards the woods, and there's a trail that Holly and I are both very familiar with. That trail leads you to a logging road. And they looked like they were walking right toward that trail. She was walking on her own. She didn't appear to be hurt, and still thinking it's Drew, watching them as they're walking toward this trail.
As Clint Bobo is watching his sister Holly and this man in camouflage disappear into the woods, back at work, Karen Bobo knows something is really wrong.
And everybody trying to say, "It's okay, Karen, this is all just a mistake." But see, they didn't know what I knew that morning. It couldn't be Drew, and that the neighbor had heard a scream. And so my friend, she grabbed my hand, pulled me up, and we headed out of the building. She hands me her phone.
911, what's your emergency? Somebody has my daughter. They have kidnapped her. Somebody in full camouflage got Holly. Please get everybody in the community out there.
They're on their way, sweetie. I got everybody on their way right now already.
Oh my God.
In the hours and days that follow, thousands of people will come to this small town, all asking the same question: where is Holly Bobo? A quiet spring morning in the country interrupted by a scream. Then, a deafening silence. 20-year-old Holly Bobo vanished from her own backyard, and her family is in anguish.
Holly was an absolute joy from the day she was born. It just seemed like there was something special about her. She was always kind to people and appreciated the small things in life.
Holly's mother says she shares a special bond with her only daughter.
We could finish each other's sentences. We enjoyed doing the same things, riding horses, listening to the radio.
Holly's cousin, country singer Whitney Duncan, says music has always been a passion for Holly.
We had singing in common for sure, and she had a beautiful voice. Peace in the Valley was her favorite gospel song. I have that clip and go back and watch it.
Following graduation from high school, Holly has her eye on the future, studying hard to become a nurse.
Holly and I ended up in the same nursing class in Parsons, and so I really got to know her. She was very committed to the program. You could just tell. She studied continuously. On the day that she went missing, we got to class, guess the first thing, the instructor went out and came back, and she announced that something terrible had happened. And so we immediately dispersed, went to the area, started searching.
When tragedy strikes, Decatur County comes together. On April 13, 2011, just hours after Holly Bobo disappeared, more than 400 people turned up here to search these woods, trying to help find any clue as to what happened to the 20-year-old nursing student.
The search response was almost immediate. By 8:30, half the neighborhood was out there.
I'm singing 800 people out here.
This guy's here is going to be the team leader.
Group 1 is this, so it'd be Group 2 that's down here.
By 10, half the county was there.
Holly, I love you so much. Please try to get home to us. And if anybody knows anything about her, please help us find her.
So when you first get there on the scene, what was it like there?
Everybody was involved trying to determine what happened to Holly Bobo. It was just a chaotic scene of following leads with hundreds of people involved.
Just anybody that can help, just come on and help us, please.
You know, Tennessee's known as the volunteer state, and that's what happened. Just about every county in half of Tennessee was there, from Memphis to beyond Nashville.
Did you see anything that is not right? Call me.
There were people on horseback, ATVs. There were posters on telephone poles. There were posters throughout the county.
Pink ribbons and pictures of Holly Bobo are posted all over the small, tight-knit community of Parsons.
So it becomes a pretty big story right away.
Is everybody ready?
It grew exponentially.
We want to just bring everybody up to speed.
When the days went on and there was no more signs of Holly.
Got a lot of ground left to cover still.
First, you had the local stations.
It's been almost a week since Holly was last seen outside her family's home.
From Jackson, from Decatur County, from Nashville and Memphis coming in. And then you had the national people coming in.
And now we have the latest on the desperate hunt for Tennessee nursing student Holly Bobo.
Last seen being dragged away from her home by a man in camouflage.
We're going to begin with the urgent search for a young woman gone missing.
In addition to thousands of volunteers, law enforcement from across the country came to tiny Parsons to help in the search.
Decatur County Sheriff's Office, who responds with multiple deputies. They called in the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. The TBI came in with dozens of agents. They called in the U.S. Marshals and the FBI.
This was the biggest investigation in the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation history. That almost every agent in the whole Tennessee Bureau had some type of involvement in it.
This is where our virtual command center is. We've really been concentrating from Holly's house north up to I-40. We're talking about a distance of about 8 miles. Yes.
They brought in the bloodhounds and so forth, and the track was set towards that bigger pond. They had divers, and they walked that pond, and they looked and didn't find anything.
There were several times I took agents out in my patrol boat and looked at places on the river.
So I just remember it was madness. Cops everywhere, helicopters flying. It was already crazy. And for me, it was just surreal.
I just want her back.
Thank you.
While authorities focus on the search, the crime scene itself reveals very little in the way of physical evidence. A footprint and spots of blood in the carport where Clint last saw his sister.
There's 2 little steps that go into the carport. Her Mustang was parked in the first slot, and the blood was found right in front of it. One of them was about the size of a fist. The other ones were much smaller, maybe a quarter-sized or dime-sized.
And it was determined to be hers. The discovery of the blood obviously is disheartening. It indicates she's at least injured. She was at least bleeding when she was taken away.
Working theory, whoever took Holly had to be familiar with the area and know the Bobo's schedule.
We feel that she knew that she was in fear of her life, so she was compliant with his command.
It might have been somebody close, somebody that kind of knew our routine of when I left, when she left, and when my daughter left to go to school.
In our minds, besides the very few people we were the closest to, anybody could have been a suspect.
As the list of possible suspects grows, authorities begin to wonder if the abductor could be even closer to home than the Bobos realize.
There were a lot of people that felt them telling the truth would be the secret to solving this case.
It's been almost a week since Holly was last seen.
20-year-old nursing student who reportedly was abducted from her home a week ago today.
Abducted from her home 6 days ago.
Weeks after 20-year-old Holly Bobo is abducted from her home, investigators still don't know who took her. But thanks to cell phone tracking technology, they say they know where she was taken.
So you mapped out where you thought her cell phone went?
Yes.
So where do you think her phone went as she was leaving her home?
It went straight north.
Can we look at the map?
Absolutely. Okay. So they go north, about 32, 33 miles an hour, the red dotted area, and then it travels this way.
Volunteers searching along the mapped out route find some of Holly's personal items, including her cell phone.
We were going down the side of the road on each side of Highway 641, just kind of in the ditches, walking elbow to elbow. We found the phone there.
They found her notebook, they found her lunchbox, they found her school papers, and that essentially followed the same path of the GPS tracking of her cell phone.
It's confirmation they are looking in the right place, but that doesn't make the search any easier.
The massive investigation has turned up nearly 300 new leads, but still no Holly. Volunteers say they don't plan on stopping until she is found.
It's just unbearable. I can't hardly imagine.
We are those people. We became those people that no one ever wants to be.
The Bobos are living a nightmare, and it's only about to get worse. Once viewed as victims, they're now being viewed as suspects.
Did she know her alleged abductor?
Yes, there were a lot of people that felt Clint was lying, felt very strongly that Clint was lying, and that Clint telling the truth would be the secret to solving this case.
I've heard countless times if I would have been that, I mean, I'm talking, sometimes people said this to my face, if I had been that brother, I would have went out there, I would have done something. They just don't understand the way that this event played out.
The TBI, the FBI, and the U.S. Marshals interviewed Clint Bobo multiple times over several weeks, asking him over and over what he knows about his sister's disappearance.
Just question after question after question, and detail after detail, just trying to pull any information they could out of me, which I understand is what they're supposed to do. I just wanted to be as helpful as I could, but I was willing to do whatever they asked me to do.
I interviewed Clint Bobo on several occasions, sometimes several hours at a time I spent with him, and I never, ever had Clint dishonest. I found him very trustworthy, and he never changed his story of what happened.
Clint's cell phone data backs up his story. He never left the Bobo home that morning.
The cell phone data, Holly was moving the whole time Clint's been here. The police were there at 8:10, and Holly's cell phone moved for another hour and 15 minutes. Clint couldn't have been involved in moving her, or somebody else would have had to been involved too.
I just wish I had known more. I wish I had known that the neighbor called Mom at school. I wished I had known that the neighbor heard a scream. I wished I had known that Drew was turkey hunting. I didn't have the information that I needed.
It will take several years, but Clint is eventually cleared, as are all the Bobo family members and Holly's boyfriend, Drew Scott. Meanwhile, as the investigation is seemingly going nowhere, the Bobo family is increasingly frustrated.
Until your child is found or you know what happened to them, I don't think anyone could ever do enough in a parent's eyes.
There was all kinds of leads coming in. We were looking at everybody. Everybody was looked at.
When did someone kind of pull away from the rest?
There was a point in the investigation to where the FBI agent and Dykus, the TBI agent, come up with a suspect.
And who was that guy?
Terry Britt.
He spent the majority of his life in prison for kidnapping and rape.
He was on that list of local people that were sexual predators. And of course, we ran his name. And Terry Britt, right away, he fit the description that Clint gave. He was about 5'10", 11.
I estimated him to be about 5'10" and about 200 pounds. I guess it was just assumed, that he had black hair or dark brown. It just kind of blended in with his camouflage clothing.
Terry Britt fits the description. He knows the routes. He lives at the end of the route where stuff was thrown out. And he has a strong history in this kind of behavior.
According to Terry Dykus, Terry Britt did have, for lack of a better term, a type. He liked pretty blonde, blue-eyed girls, and Holly fit that type.
Agent Dykus wants to talk to Britt, He has no trouble tracking him down. Britt is locked up on another charge. Dykus records the conversation with him.
While Britt says he has an alibi and denies having anything to do with Holly Bobo's abduction, he spoke hypothetically about who may have done it and why.
He said if somebody like him had got Holly, she's just a toy to him, and it's all fantasy world.
She's young, pretty, perfect, somewhat body.
Yeah.
Okay, like a toy, some people would think. See, this man, when he goes and gets this female, then he's gonna go snatch her up. He can't wait to get her to wherever he's gonna take her to, because he's wanting that body.
He's living in this fantasy. He's got this perfect girl, and he's got to get to that body as quick as he can. But as soon as he gets done, now reality sinks in.
Well, here comes reality. Now I've got a body. What am I gonna do with it? Because if you keep it, you gotta feed it.
Right.
You gotta hide it. It ain't gonna happen. And if you kill it, what you gonna do with it? I mean, there's no way.
The first time I interviewed him, I was like, oh my God, this guy did it. This guy did it.
But the Bobo investigation is about to take a turn.
I've been hearing about these guys.
And the investigation, they were brought up early and often.
Is a new prime suspect about to take center stage?
He would tell people, you're going to end up in a hole just like Holly.
Months into their investigation, no arrests have been made, but TBI agent Terry Dykus is convinced he has his guy.
We conducted 1,000 interviews. We looked at 5 counties around. Terry Brett's the one. It's either this guy or we have no idea who. There were some disagreements, some very heated disagreements at the TBI. It was just the argument, you don't have enough proof for it. You can't prove that he did it. That's what I was faced with, and I was taken off the investigation.
With new TBI agents now taking the lead, they clear Terry Brett and go back to sifting through all those tips that have been gathered over the years.
Investigators dig into this case. A variety of possible suspects emerge, but one group of men well known to law enforcement becomes the focus of their investigation.
I've been hearing about these guys. That people are saying that they're into all kinds of things, stealing things.
They were friends, 4 guys: Zach Adams, Dylan Adams, Jason Autry, and Shane Austin. All 4 were suspects separately.
Zach had criminal histories. Dylan had drug charges. Jason Autry had a history of theft and drug charges. Shane Austin admittedly had a drug problem. They all had that common link of having a criminal past.
Tell me about your son, Shane.
He was just the life of the party. He was just a fun person to be around. But he had a problem.
Between his 9th and 10th grade year of high school, he dislocated his shoulder playing football. I think the opioid stuff started after his first surgery. He wanted to not be addicted to drugs. He tried not to be addicted to drugs for a long time.
Jimmy and Rita Austin had given Shane a place to live, a little trailer to live in that was down the road from their family home.
Their last names all started with A, and the locals referred to them as the A train. They were known for getting in trouble.
In the investigation, they were brought up early and often by people that know that they're into drugs. Zach would tell people, you're going to end up in a hole just like Holly. Comments everywhere that normal people would not make.
And in the early days of the investigation, Holly's mother, Karen, thought these guys could know something, given what they had been heard saying around town. So she tracked them down herself.
I asked them, did they know anything about our daughter's abduction? Of course, they all denied it.
She was kind of doing her own investigation. I mean, she came here and asked to talk to Shane.
I guess I would have fought Goliath. You know, I just had no fear. I was trying to find my daughter.
And at the time of Holly's abduction, witnesses tell investigators that before she went missing, Shane Austin crossed paths with her at a local raccoon hunting festival.
The story was that Shane had seen Holly Bobo at the coon hunt. He'd kind of followed her around like a stalker.
Did you hear anything about that?
I guess we heard that rumor. We heard that he was trying to take a picture of her and pretending like he was talking on the phone. But now Shane only had a flip phone, so I don't think you could hold that flip phone up to your head and take a picture of somebody, but that's what we heard.
Investigators followed up on this story. Within a week of Holly's disappearance, showed up at the Austin's property wanting to speak with Shane.
They come and brought the dogs and come down and search Shane's trailer, and that was the start of it.
Throughout their investigation, authorities say they never found evidence at the Austin's property that connected him to Holly Bobo.
Were you surprised that they were down there?
Yes. I mean, I know Shane had drug issues, and that's what I told the TBI guy when he come to the gate down there. And I said, if she'd been made of morphine, I'd said you come to the right place. But no way.
And then, 2 years later, with those new agents on the case, authorities zeroed back in on the Adams brothers, Jason Autry and Shane Austin.
At what point did you realize that he might be in trouble with all of this?
When they come back at 6 o'clock in the morning and tooting the horn, so we went down and opened the gate and let them in, and they said, we're down here to get this over with, so we won't Shane.
That's when they wanted to know where the body was at. The TBI met with Shane and they got that immunity deal.
Investigators offered Shane immunity to cooperate and tell them what he knew about his friend's involvement in Holly Bobo's abduction.
You take an immunity deal, hey, you've done something. You've done something. But the lawyer said, if you don't do it, they're going to arrest him. They've done told me they're going to arrest him. And he said, it's going to cost thousands of dollars. So us three, we talked and we agreed. And
we talked hard.
We talked
hard. If you got any part of this, you better be telling it.
Shane Austin had nothing at all to do with this.
So Shane Austin takes the deal, but when he sits down with investigators, they're disappointed.
They was very unhappy because he didn't know where the body was at.
According to authorities, all he can tell them is that he too has heard Zach Adams make incriminating comments about what happened to Holly.
There was talk that Zach had blurted out, I'm going to do you like I did to Holly.
But Shane also said that he didn't believe that Zach was telling the truth. He thought that Zach was just boasting.
But investigators believe Shane knows more than he's telling, and they revoke that immunity deal.
I'm scared for my son. If the TBI wasn't here, they was calling him, harassing him. So we didn't have any peace.
I don't know if it was them calling him or whatever, but anyway, his drug use just escalated, and that's from that. So, and Christmas last time we seen him.
Shane's parents say his life continued to spiral, and in 2015, he died by suicide.
Shane opened that door to addiction. They just grabbed him and pulled him in, and this time it pulled him in for real. Wasn't gonna let him go.
Authorities have lost one cooperating witness, but they're about to get a new one.
We go upstairs to nobody now. Ain't no reason to stare at nobody.
Could what he has to say finally explain what happened to Holly Bobo? More than 2 years after Holly Bobo disappeared, investigators are still searching for answers. Rumors about 4 local small-time criminals, Zach Adams, his brother Dylan Adams, Jason Autry, and Shane Austin, have failed to lead to any hard evidence. But in 2014, investigators catch a break when Dylan Adams is arrested on unrelated gun charges.
When he was arrested this time, it was big. This guy that he had been hanging with was a convicted felon, and they had a couple guns on them and drugs. So he got in trouble for having the firearms around a felon.
They had him in a federal holding facility up in northwestern Tennessee.
While Dylan Adams is incarcerated on these gun charges, investigators speak with him at least 6 times over 8 months, and he seems to implicate his brother Zach and Jason Autry in the kidnapping and murder of Holly Bobo.
I had to go through the TBI to make sure my son was still alive, still safe, and each time that I spoke with him, there was no indication that he was being interrogated. He has no concept of what is really going on.
Dylan's family says he has intellectual disabilities.
Dylan was slow. He really was.
Dylan would have a hard time completing a simple task. Maybe a little slow in reading, comprehending, things like that.
According to court documents, Dylan eventually pleads guilty to lesser federal charges and is released, but not into the custody of his mother. In fact, she says she couldn't even see him because of the conditions of his release.
I was told that I would not be able to contact him, or he would not be able to contact me. I think safe house was the word that they used, because Dylan was their key witness and he had to be protected. I had no idea where he was going.
As it turns out, prosecutors arranged for Dylan Adams to be released into the custody of a private citizen and former Memphis police officer named Dennis Benjamin.
Dennis Benjamin takes him back to his house for several weeks.
Is this normal for someone to be released into the custody of someone that they don't know that's a law enforcement person?
It's real strange. That's for sure.
We reached out to the prosecutor in that case about Dennis Benjamin's involvement, and they would not comment. And while Dylan Adams is there, a huge break in the case, the moment the Bobo family had been dreading for years.
The 3-year and 5-month search for Holly had come to an end. 2 men searching for ginseng found her remains Sunday morning off a country corner road in Holiday.
Holly's skull was found with a single gunshot. Among the remains, some of her schoolwork, her sandals, and her promise ring from her boyfriend, Drew Scott.
It was just a miracle she was found. Because to this day, as broken as my heart is so broken for those people that still don't have that. Because I don't think I could have kept going.
And just weeks later, the Decatur County Sheriff's Office receives a shocking phone call. The caller is Dennis Benjamin, telling them that Dylan Adams, still in his custody, has just confessed to taking part in the kidnapping and murder of Holly Bobo.
Then have your seat right there if you don't mind.
Dylan Adams is brought in to speak with TBI agents, and through halting one-word answers, he tells them that he, Zach Adams, Jason Autry, and Shane Austin committed the crime together.
You came forward to Dennis and told him some things that are above and beyond what you've ever told me or Brent about this case, right? Okay. Describe what was she doing, what did she look like, what was she wearing? She had long pants on, pink shirt, arms very fat, that. Okay.
Dylan says that all 4 men sexually assaulted Holly at Zach's house.
And now you're saying that Shane Austin is sitting there. You're sitting there. Jason Austin is sitting there. And Zach. Is there anybody else involved? Was Holly Bobo kidnapped? Was she raped? Was she raped by you?
I just see someone being bullied into saying something they didn't do. I think that he was just trying to get through it.
You withheld information. That ain't how this works.
He was in a federal holding facility for almost 2 years. The TBI agent there pounded him, and he never, ever once said, I raped Holly. And then he's moved to this Dennis Benjamin's house, and suddenly he's raped Holly.
We attempted to contact Dennis Benjamin, but we were unable to reach him.
She was shot in the back of the head. And how did that happen? How much blood was on the floor? What was ever done to clean that up? I know this today. If I don't know.
Armed with Dylan's confession and a search warrant, investigators go to Zach Adams' house looking for any physical evidence to corroborate his story.
We come to the door there and asked me, said, you want to unlock it or you want us to tear the door down? And they knocked a hole in it to see what was back there, I reckon. The door they found down as they was tearing the floor out, they used my pick and things to tear this out with, but they cut it out with a saw.
And the story was raping her and attacking her in the house. Well, they pulled up floorboards, they DNA tested all the couch and the bed and everything, never found nothing.
We reached out to the TBI, and they declined to answer specific questions about this case.
In my heart of hearts, I know my boys, they're drug addicts. They're not murderers.
But despite a lack of evidence, authorities believe that's exactly what they are. Zach Adams, Jason Autry, and Dylan Adams are eventually all indicted for murder.
Decatur County Grand Jury handed down indictment of especially aggravated kidnapping and first-degree felony murder.
With all three heading to trial, the state announces that it will seek the death penalty, and Jason Autry proclaims his innocence to anyone who will listen.
Innocent man, falsely accused.
And tonight, for the first time, you'll hear from Zach Adams in his own words.
I didn't know that you were.
And the brand new development that Adams hopes may finally exonerate him.
If you go play with him, you might as well go all the way.
All right, we're ready to continue.
A nursing student who was last seen being dragged away from her home by a man in camouflage.
Golly, I love you so much.
The Bobos are living a nightmare, and it's only about to get worse.
I know that my daughter begged for her life. Look at me, please. You have shown absolutely no remorse.
But is she saying that to someone who's innocent? Why do you think you guys became suspects in this case? There were a lot of people at your trial that testified that you had made comments and that you had killed Holly Bobo.
I don't think they're capable of kidnapping a woman and keeping it secret for 2 years. I don't think they're capable of doing arithmetic.
Raise your right hand, please.
Did a key witness lie on the stand?
He said, I need you to help me bury this body. He said, that's Holly Bobo.
Now, video never seen before of that same crucial witness.
If you go play with him, you might as well go all the way.
Changing his story.
So we went all the way.
What does he tell you?
Tells me he made the whole thing up.
Why would someone admit to killing someone if they didn't do it?
Circuit Court, Hardin County, Tennessee is now in session pursuant to adjournment. The Honorable C. Creed McGinley presiding. God bless the United States, the state of Tennessee, the county of Hardin, and this honorable court. You may be seated.
It's been 6 years since Holly Bobo was taken. 6 years since she died. Everybody, judge, jury, prosecution, defense, gathered inside this courthouse. It's September, but it's stuffy. The jurors are sweating, people fanning themselves in the Tennessee heat, and no one has a hotter seat than the defendant, Zach Adams.
He's charged with kidnapping, murdering, and raping Holly Bobo.
He could face the death penalty if convicted.
In this case, state of Tennessee versus Secretary Brian Adams, state ready to proceed.
We are, Your Honor.
Defendant ready to proceed.
Zach Adams has put on a suit and a lot of weight. He is the only defendant in this trial. His friend Shane Austin died by suicide. Co-defendants Jason Autry and Dylan Adams expected to stand trial later.
Zach was the one that the state of Tennessee thought was the most culpable, so they chose to try him first.
Hello, this is a prepaid call from an inmate at the Tennessee Department of Corrections.
Hello.
Hey, Zach, this is Eva. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
Adams does not testify, but years later, he tells us his story in his first interview ever. What do you say to all those people who think you're guilty?
Where's the evidence? There's not one single piece of evidence.
Did you think you were going to get off?
Well, I knew I was innocent. When you're innocent, it doesn't matter. You're thinking you got it. Of course you're thinking you're going to come home. Because you're innocent.
You took her? You raped her? Killed her? You covered it up? You lied about it? And you almost got away with it? But you didn't. Because we're here now.
He did not murder Holly Lynn Bobo. He did not kidnap Holly Lynn Bobo. He did not abduct Holly Lynn Bobo. He did not rape Holly. And do you remember?
Karen Bobo knew the man, now accused of killing her daughter, when he was just a boy.
Did you know Zach Adams?
I had Zach in the 4th grade. I was his 4th grade school teacher.
The very first day, you have Holly's mother basically fall out on the stand during her testimony.
Take just a minute, I'm feeling sick.
Let's take the witness. I want everyone to remain with me while the jury files out, please. Got a nurse.
Holly's father also testifies.
What day did you give up hope for the very first time?
About 3 years into it, give or take, the TBI come to our house, told us that was Holly, that Holly had been found. That was her remains.
I'm going to ask you to look at this picture. You recognize it?
Prosecutors produced the alleged murder weapon. It's a .32 caliber revolver witnesses claim was owned by Zach Adams' friend, Shane Austin, and it was recovered in a drainage ditch just months before the trial.
We located a metal object that was later identified as a revolver.
A parade of no fewer than 9 witnesses testify that over the years, Adams, often while on drugs or in jail, made incriminating statements.
I'll kill you like I did Holly Bobo.
He made the comment, I couldn't have picked a prettier bitch. He just had a couple of his friends, you know, they got drunk and they went into the woods with this girl. And then he was like, you know, I was there for the worst of it. And I was like, well, did you do it? And he was like, I was there for the worst of it. And he just left it like that.
Somebody that would brag about that, my God, that's the devil's work. You don't do that.
Did you say those things?
My life used to revolve around drugs and selling drugs and stuff, so if I could get people intimidated or make them think that, you know, fear me or whatever, so I said things that I should have said, but I never directly said I did this to Holly.
The prosecution and defense each call a cell phone expert. Both agree Adams and the other suspects' phones did not hit cell towers near the Bobo home at the time Holly was taken.
At the time of this abduction, do we have any idea where Zach Adams' phone is, where Shane Austin's phone is, where Dylan's Adams' phone is, or where Jason Autry's phone is?
No.
The prosecution expert says it's possible Holly and Zach Adams' phones were in the same general locations later that morning, but the defense expert disagrees.
In very general terms, the devices were not together at the same location at the same time during that morning.
Did you kill Holly Bobo?
Absolutely not.
Why do you think you guys became suspects in this case?
We didn't have a hard alibi, and we was local, drug users and stuff, and it wouldn't matter putting us away. I felt like they had to arrest somebody, even if it was the wrong person, which it was.
As the trial continues, astonishing testimony. A witness you might think would be the last person to believe Adams is innocent.
I looked at Zach personally a total of 2 or 3 times. Whenever the last one was over with, I stopped looking at him.
And a stunning courtroom appearance. That former suspect with a theory of what Holly's killer was thinking.
You gotta hide it. And if you kill it, what you gonna do with it?
Terry Britt, the man investigators say they cleared, is about to take the stand.
All right, we're ready to continue. Defense ready to proceed. State ready to proceed. All right, call your next.
Terry Dykes.
The prosecution of Zach Adams for the murder of Holly Bobo, not surprisingly, features plenty of law enforcement witnesses. That's standard.
What is unusual, the defense calls 6 current and former law enforcement witnesses, including the TBI's very own former lead investigator, Terry Dykes.
The determination I made is that he could not have been involved in the kidnapping.
Is it unusual for law enforcement?
Absolutely, it's unusual. I've never testified for the defense. No, it doesn't happen. Law enforcement guys don't come forward for the defense.
I was wasting my time.
Wasting your time doing what?
Investigating these idiots.
Can you be more specific about these idiots?
Jason Autry, Zach Adams, and Shane Austin, and Dylan Adams. I don't think they're capable of kidnapping a woman and keeping it secret for 2 years. I don't think they're capable of that. I don't don't think they're capable of doing arithmetic, much less this.
In August of 2012, Terry Dicus had a new supervisor come in, and that supervisor looked at the leads and looked at the way that Terry Dicus was doing that investigation.
Case agent on the case needed to be benched.
Why was he benched?
In my opinion, based on statements he made as well as statements other agents made to me, he had lost his objectivity. He had tunnel vision on a particular suspect and was not objective about all of the facts coming into the case.
I weighed the information that I had at the time, and I believe I'm objective.
To have the lead case agent who was removed from the case to take the stand and still saying during a murder trial that he still doesn't think that Zach Adams is guilty of this, that's something that's very hard to hear.
Dicus admits he does not know what evidence investigators gathered against Zach Adams and others after he left.
But you can't tell us anything about the 3 and 4 years after that.
You're right. I don't know what y'all have done since then.
In a murder trial, it's usually the prosecutors pointing fingers, but in this case, the defense attorneys took a turn. They argue Zach Adams is the wrong guy. Somebody else kidnapped and murdered Holly Bobo. That guy, Terry Britt. And you don't have to go far to find him. He's sitting right up there on the witness stand.
Terry Britt, T-E-R-Y-B-R-I-T-T.
Terry Britt was a registered sex offender who lived fairly close to the Bobo home. He lived also very, very close to where some of her property was found later on during the search.
Would you tell the jury what you're currently incarcerated for?
Kidnapping temporary.
Do you have other convictions in your history?
Yes, ma'am. Had a rape charge and a robbery charge.
I got on to him because, number one, he is the exact size of what our witness said the abductor looked like. Okay. His history tells me he's capable of kidnapping her.
Do you remember Terry Dicus coming out to talk to you about the disappearance of Holly Bobo multiple times?
Oh, yeah, we all know Dicus, don't we?
Britt's history of rape, kidnapping, and firearms convictions made him such a strong suspect, the TBI got a subpoena to bug his home.
Were you aware that for the first time in the state of Tennessee, they had actually bugged your house?
No, ma'am.
But that extraordinary scrutiny of Britt yields no evidence to warrant an arrest, and he says he has an alibi.
Your wife, Janet Britt, was with you the entire day.
The entire day.
You were never apart from one another.
Never.
I checked his alibi and found out it was garbage.
Why did you think the alibi was garbage?
His cell phone called Janet's cell phone and talked to it for 2 minutes and 56 seconds. His alibi is not true. It's fabricated.
Okay.
Nevertheless, the Brits insist they were together the whole time and their alibi is legitimate.
Terry Dicus called me to go interview Terry Britt. And all Dicus wanted to know was if he is interested in talking about Holly Bobo and working out some kind of deal.
U.S. Marshal John Walker says he visits Britt, who is in prison on an unrelated charge, and lays out how he believed Britt committed the crime.
I said, I know you're a sociopath. I know you have issues with women. And I walked him through what we knew. He interrupted me and looked at me very, very straightforward and said, sounds like you have it all figured out. I'll plead to it and you can close the case.
Do you remember one time offering to plead guilty to the murder of Holly Bobo if you could get a 20-year sentence?
No.
So you're saying that is not...
I'm saying that's a lie.
When I got up to leave, he stood up behind me and he said, if I need to show you something, how long would it take you to get me out of here? He wanted to take me and show me where the remains were at.
And did you relate all of this information to the TBI?
Yes, I did.
And as far as you know, did the TBI go back to follow up with an interview?
They didn't follow up the next few days like I told him that they were probably going to do. That did not happen.
Okay.
I thought the next day they'd get the confession from him and find her remains. And then nothing happened. And I'm like, what do you mean nothing happened?
We asked the TBI about this. A spokesperson said because of the ongoing legal processes, they are not able to answer specific questions, but they remain confident in the investigation.
Did you have anything to do? Anything at all?
No, I did not.
With the abduction of Holly Bobo?
No, I did not.
The rape of Holly Bobo?
No, I did not.
Putting a bullet in the back of her head?
No, I did not. I wouldn't do that. All right, you can step in.
Terry Britt leaves the witness stand, not not a free man, but never charged in the Holly Bobo case. Now the jury is about to hear from the most compelling kind of witness, one who claims to be an eyewitness to murder. Is this the testimony that could send Zach Adams to death row?
At that time, boom, gun sound, gun went off. It sounded like boom, 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 underneath that bridge.
Chilling testimony today in the trial of Zach Adams, one of the men charged in the murder of Holly Bobo.
The prosecution opened up with a somber message to the jurors saying Adams bragged about killing Bobo.
So far, there's no concrete evidence pinning Adams to the crime.
There is no DNA, no fingerprints, no video, no recordings.
His attorney insists the case against Zach Adams is flimsy, largely circumstantial, with little direct evidence connecting him to the crime.
There was no evidence. There's not one single strand of evidence that points to me, or anybody, Dylan or Shane or Jason.
In the first 3 days of the state's case, none of the witnesses claimed to have seen Zach Adams with Holly Bobo, but that is about to change. On day 4, the state calls Jason Autry.
Jason Autry, for a long time, said that he was innocent. He had nothing to do with Holly Bobo's abduction, nothing to do with her rape, nothing to do with her murder.
I want to say one thing. I'm innocent of these charges.
I heard you say that.
Right hand before God, I'm innocent, sir.
But then in late 2016, Autry changed his story.
We get a call from Jason Autry's attorney, and he informs us that Jason has been talking to prosecutors and that he's going to be testifying against Zach at trial.
Raise your right hand, please. So this swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Yes, sir.
There are witnesses, there are star witnesses, and then there's Jason Autry. From gavel to gavel, the entire 4th day of testimony is all Autry.
When I pulled in, there was a large fire burning in a burn barrel. Dylan Adams was standing at the door of the trailer with his shirt off. Shane was walking around in the yard, hollering, "Y'all need to hurry up and get the goddamn hell out of here," with a firearm holstered on the right side.
Just details his entire day on April 13th like it was yesterday.
Autry says Adams tells him later that he and his brother and Shane Austin had kidnapped Holly Bobo and raped her.
He said, "I need you to help me bury this body." He said, "That's Holly Bobo."
Jason Autry testifies that he and Zach Adams brought Holly Bobo here to this long, winding dirt road that runs along the Tennessee River.
Autry says they take the body, which was wrapped in a blanket, and lay it on the ground.
I'm standing over the top of her, my hand on my knees. She's being right here. At that time, I see the foot move, and a sound of distress. It sounded like come from the blanket. I told him, I said, "This is still alive."
Autry says he keeps a lookout while Zach gets a pistol from the truck.
And at that time, boom, the gun went off. And it sounded like boom, boom, boom. Underneath that bridge, it was just one shot, but it echoed underneath that bridge all the way down that damn river bottom. And when that gun went off, birds went up, just all up under that bridge. And it was just dead silence for just a second.
Autry says at that point he hears a boat motor and fears they'll be discovered.
We load the body back into the truck in the same fashion, shut the tailgate. We drive in just erratic. Panic, just pretty much.
To hear him telling that story.
Anger. What I felt anger. Sadness, because I thought he was my friend. Why would he lie on me?
The Bobo family told us in 2017 they believe Zach Adams is responsible for their daughter's murder and that Jason Autry's testimony rang true to them.
It did, and it matched what the prosecutors had also.
My cross-examination of Autry was everything. I mean, it was really important.
The defense attorney points out at the time Autry says the murder happened, he was on phone calls with his girlfriend and also his mother.
In the middle of all this, you were able to take a telephone call from your mother, Shirley King, that morning at 9:42, weren't you?
If your records reflect that, that's true.
Autry also mentions a burn barrel at Shane Austin's house.
55-gallon barrel with all the paint off of it, with flames shooting out the top of it, 3 to 4 foot high.
Shane's mother says there was no burn barrel.
Shane didn't have a burn barrel at his trailer.
Shane's mother also says Jason Autry was wrong about a fence at Shane's trailer.
The gate was open.
No, the driveway did not have a gate at that time. We did put a gate and a fence up, and it was June of 2011 after we bought Shane a puppy.
The prosecution basically adopted Jason Autry's story of what happened, but they left huge gaps in their prosecution, and they don't explain who it was that came and abducted Holly. They don't explain how her body got at that cell tower.
Prosecutors argued at trial that Shane Austin could have been the one who took Holly.
Jason Autry is the best evidence that these prosecutors have in this case because they have very little physical evidence. They're banking on the jury completely, wholeheartedly buying his account.
Inside this courthouse, the jury is about to deliver a verdict. It could be a life or death decision for Zach Adams. Either way, it won't be the end of it. Years later, a new investigation, another courtroom battle, and prison interviews. What Zach Adams and Jason Autry say now.
I know you.
When the verdict is announced, out of respect for this jury, I will tell you, I want you to contain your emotions. I want there to be no displays.
The jury deliberates 11 hours over 2 days and then finds Zach Adams guilty on all counts in the kidnapping, rape, and murder of Holly Bobo. When you heard them read the verdict and they said guilty.
It was terrible. It was terrible. Worst day of my life, probably.
There'll never be enough punishment for him.
He don't deserve to be breathing air that he's breathing today.
Zach Adams avoids a possible death sentence. In a deal with prosecutors approved by the Bobo family, he gets life in prison without parole, plus 50 years.
He was at a picture of. That's Holly and myself. That's Holly and her nursing student classmates just a few days before.
Karen Bobo, the woman who taught Zach Adams in the 4th grade, gives him a lesson on heartbreak.
I know that she begged for her life because my daughter loved and enjoyed life. But you chose to take that from her.
Tonight, a man accused of killing and raping Holly Bobo pleads guilty. Dylan Adams pleads guilty to a lesser offense, facilitating murder.
He now faces 35 years in prison without the possibility of parole.
3 years later, Jason Autry pleads guilty to lesser charges related to Holly's kidnapping and murder, and with credit for time served, he is set free.
His testimony was some of the most credible, persuasive testimony I've ever heard given in a courtroom.
The state had to make a deal with the devil to get Zach Adams prosecuted. In my opinion, all 3 of them should be hanging in this big oak tree on the backside of this courthouse.
From his prison cell, Zach Adams has tried and failed over the years to have his conviction overturned. Now, he is trying again. You hear people say that they're innocent all the time in jail, in prison.
Yeah.
So people are skeptical. What do you say to those people?
He said the person was, 5 foot 200 pounds? It wasn't Jason Autry. He's 6'6". Couldn't have been me. I was 6'3", 125 pounds. My brother's 6'2", 125 pounds. The person in abduction there wasn't one of us. I mean, it didn't match the description of any of us.
Now, a flurry of legal filings beginning January 2024 lay out why Zach Adams says he deserves a new trial and why prosecutors say he does not.
April 2024. a hearing at the Hardin County Courthouse.
The court's going to order that the temporary order placing these exhibits under seal is to remain in effect.
Adams' new attorney is there, and some familiar faces, trial prosecutor Jennifer Nichols and the Bobos. Zach Adams is searching for new evidence, new witnesses. He's being helped by Katie Spurko. She's a neuropsychologist, and she's been re-examining the case against him.
How did you end up involved in this case?
The attorney who's representing Zach Adams, Doug Bates, is an attorney I've worked with before.
What was he looking for you to do?
He wanted me to review the case file, watch the testimony, and see if there were things that stood out to me in terms of whether someone was being honest or not.
Spurko says she is now working for Zach Adams' mother instead of his attorney.
As psychologists, we are trained on how to interview people to elicit accurate information.
Spurko provided 2020 with interviews she recorded during her investigation.
I want to know everything about you. I want to be able to look into your soul and know every single thing about you. I wanted to get a sense for what he was like, because he didn't testify, and I remember the first thing he asked me was if I thought he was innocent. And I said I didn't know yet.
Do you now think he's innocent?
I am so confident he's innocent.
Hi, my name's Katie, and I'm so sorry to come here unannounced. I had your address and I didn't have your phone number.
Spurko looked for more information about former suspect Terry Britt, who was later cleared by the TBI. She went to see his wife, Janet, who still stands by her husband.
There was some evidence that came up with Terry regarding the Holly Bobo situation.
I don't see how, because he didn't have nothing to do with it. There's no way he could have went and kidnapped her. He was here with me. Just because he has a record, that doesn't mean that he had anything to do with it.
Some of Katie Spurko's investigating has provoked a reaction from the prosecutor. In a court filing that includes an affidavit from Janet Britt, the prosecutor accuses Spurko of trying to intimidate Britt and of offering to show her confidential discovery files.
Spurko denies she tried to intimidate Britt and says the only files she offered to share were public records of Terry Britt's criminal history. Zach Adams' court filings also say Spurko found a witness who claims she saw Terry Britt behaving oddly the morning Holly was taken.
She said he was in a smaller truck and was kind of leaning over, had made eye contact with her, leaning over, adjusting his body to block her view of his passenger seat.
Prosecutors say Adams' attorney and Spurko have not gotten a sworn statement from that witness, which they say the law requires before it can be considered.
Still ahead, the effort to free Zach Adams brings Katie Spurko face to face with the person who helped send him to prison.
He said somebody's got to pay, Jason. He said that he gonna beat you. Hell no, I ain't paying.
Forensic neuropsychologist Katie Spurko, now working for Zach Adams' family, has spent nearly a year studying his case file, watching the trial testimony, tracking down and interviewing witnesses. But the person she most wanted to talk to was the man many say sealed Adams' fate, Jason Autry.
Mr. Autry, raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give.
I found him to be such an engaging witness. And at the same time, there were aspects of his story that were red flags, just impossible.
Dylan Adams was standing at the door of the trailer with his shirt off. Shane was walking around in the yard with a firearm holstered on the right side.
Okay, so this is in 2017, and he's having a recollection. A friend goes around with a firearm, has it holstered on his right side. That's a really specific thing to remember.
That's my testimony, the truth.
There were just a lot of question marks for you.
Yes, he's going through the events of this day, minute by minute almost, with this crazy level of attention to detail and memory. That was a discrepancy that caught my attention.
After being released from prison for his admitted involvement in Holly Bobo's murder, it doesn't take long for Jason Autry to get in trouble with the law again.
Requesting assistance on Morris Road with a subject that has a rifle. Be advised the subject has taken off running.
Well, 2 months later, after they let him out of jail, he gets caught in the neighboring county with a firearm.
Well, breaking news now. The man who served time for the killing of Holly Bobo has been arrested once again, this time in Benton County in a field there.
there he goes, back to jail, and he's still there to this day.
Autry ultimately pleaded guilty to these new weapons charges and remains behind bars awaiting sentencing in that case.
Back in 2017, Jason Autry told the jury that spellbinding story of what happened to Holly Bobo under the I-40 bridge right here at the banks of the Tennessee River. But what's he saying now? That's what Katie Spurko had to find out if Zach Adams was going to have any hope at all.
My name is Jason Autry.
There you go.
When you went to see Jason, what were you hoping was going to come from that conversation?
I was just super curious what he would be like, if he would talk to me, what he would have to say. Can we just start at the very beginning of when he first started getting questioned related to the Bobo case? I asked him, what did you do that day? And he gave me what seemed like a really honest answer.
No, I couldn't tell you what I done that day.
Yeah.
Katie Spurko provided ABC News with this video, and it's the first time it's being seen publicly.
I want to know your whole experience. How did it get from you being arrested for this to you being on the stand and telling this crazy story?
So a lot of this, in the beginning, was just all routine questioning.
Autry says that when he told his attorney that he intended to fight the charges and go to trial, he got an answer he wasn't expecting.
He said, I got you about a 95% chance. You spend the rest of your time right away. You know, well, that's what they want. You know, I need to know what they want. What do they want from me?
Yeah.
I want you to testify. Straight up about it.
What does he tell you?
Tells me he made the whole thing up. Took the phone records and the case file and put together what he did that day to craft a story that fits in with the evidence that exists and cannot be changed.
So what if I say all I seen was just a body, laying in the back of the truck? It's not enough to get you out.
Why would someone admit to killing someone if they didn't do it?
He's sitting in jail for years. He's being told that Zach's going to be telling a story against him, and basically it's this or the death penalty. And so under that amount of pressure, I think a lot of people would have folded the way he did.
And he said, I need you to help me bury this body. He said, that's Holly Bobo.
You're an engaging witness.
Well, I was trained.
I could tell you were trained. I'm on the witness stand a lot.
Yeah.
I know. I was trained witness.
Yeah.
Who was doing the training?
Jennifer Nichols.
Yeah.
She was the boss of it all.
Zach Adams' defense team made this claim in their legal filing, and we reached out to Jennifer Nichols about it. She denied the allegation, telling us that it is a false statement. The only guidance ever given to Jason Autry was to tell the truth. There was no training.
That's the worst that I've ever felt in my life, coming back. Knowing that you just lied to put an innocent man in prison.
Now he has no benefit to be gained other than morally to address the remorse. This isn't helping him whatsoever. He's facing sentencing on federal gun charges.
But it's important to remember that one way or another, Jason Autry is an admitted liar. And prosecutors argue that Autry's recantation should not get Zach Adams a new trial, saying Mr. Autry's credibility was thoroughly impeached during cross-examination at trial and that the jury was aware of inconsistencies in his testimony. They also contend that Autry's testimony was vetted and corroborated.
What do you think of the fact that Jason recanted his confession?
I'm glad. I'm glad he's telling the truth. It's about time. I wish he would have never lied in the first place.
So what does this mean for Zach Adams? Is there a chance Jason Autry's new story could set him free?
A request for a new trial for a man convicted in the 2011 murder of a Holly Bobo.
I mean, so I'm in here for somebody to do, so I'm hopeful.
This case is a tragedy. There was never a day in that courtroom that I didn't feel for Karen Bobo.
And you have shown absolutely, look at me please, you have shown absolutely no remorse for anything that you have done.
At sentencing, Holly Bobo's mother, there was that very dramatic moment where she wanted to speak to you, and look you face to face, eye to eye?
Well, she felt like she was talking to the person that took her daughter's life, but she don't realize that I'm not that person. They're the real victims of all this, but they didn't know that we didn't have anything to do with it. And if I knew anything, I would have helped any way I could have.
Before this happened to Holly, we lived in what we thought was one of the safest communities. The day that Holly was abducted, not only was something taken from us, it was taken from our whole county, community, and the surrounding counties.
The goal was to get justice for Holly, and I feel like that happened. And obviously it didn't bring her back. There will still be sad, but there is a little peace in knowing that the people that did this to her will be in jail.
But now there are questions about whether one of those people, Zach Adams, will remain behind bars.
Request for a new trial for a man convicted in the 2011 murder of a Holly Bobo.
Zach Adams' team will now need to convince a judge that Jason Autry's new story amounts to new evidence that would have changed the jury's verdict.
Jason Autry recanted his testimony, and that would give Adams an alibi for Bobo's murder.
We reached out to Jennifer Nichols, the prosecutor in this case. She declined our request for an interview, but sent us a statement that says in part, "At trial, we presented proof through 62 witnesses and 250 exhibits. The jurors heard testimony of Zachary Adams' confessions to multiple and unrelated individuals. Today, nearly 8 years after the verdicts, I remain confident in the jury's verdicts of Zachary Adams' guilt."
We understood, when the trial and sentence and everything took place, that there'd be a number of events down through the years. We're going to be patient because we still are seeking justice for our beloved Holly.
Holly was always about helping someone. Whatever Holly did, she put forth her best effort, and it was just in her soul to be that kind, loving, nurturing person.
It's been more than 13 years since Holly's passing, and her legacy still remains. A stretch of Tennessee highway has been dedicated in her honor, and Holly's cousin, country singer Whitney Duncan, recorded a song to honor Holly.
I wanted to convey a message of she's not hurting anymore. She is in a better place. But I know she's watching down and she sees everything. And she is happy.
After Holly's death, the Bobo family established a scholarship in her name for other nursing students.
As for Zach Adams, a hearing is scheduled next month when a judge is going to consider some of his legal filings. That's our program for tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.
An all-new 2020 starts right now.
A chaotic scene. Local pastor Matt Baker has arrived home to find his wife Carrie unresponsive in their bedroom.
I put my head to her chest and no air coming out, felt for pulse, nothing. An EMT told me that my daughter was dead.
There's a piece of paper on the end table and something didn't set right.
Your wife took her own life, and it's pretty obvious. I just kept saying there's no way.
Was there an autopsy done initially?
There was no autopsy done.
We don't think Carrie killed herself. We know she didn't.
Your assignment for today.
We're investigating.
We did. It was nonstop all the time.
I would go, "Good morning, angels."
Harley's Angels of Waco. They were this group of strong women who were not going to just let this go.
You're presented with a crime scene that's not really a crime scene, right?
Things aren't adding up. I have to know the truth. What are you talking about? Murder?
EMS, what's your emergency? My wife is laying in the bed. Her lips are blue, hands are cold.
It was just before midnight here in the small town of Hewitt, Texas, on the outskirts of Waco. Beloved minister Matt Baker comes home to find his wife unresponsive in their bedroom. Two young daughters asleep in their beds. Matt calls 911.
Are you in there with her right now? Is she conscious? No, she's breathing. Did you see what happened to her? No, I do not know. The ambulance is on the way, okay? Are you up beside her right now? Yes.
Matt had been beside his wife Carrie since they met at a Baptist summer camp and fell in love.
I was the assistant director and she was one of the camp counselors. And from day one, we kind of hit off.
Carrie fell head over heels. She told the family that she'd met a good Christian boy and she'd fallen in love.
Her faith was the core of who she was. And so it was very important to her that she found someone whose faith was aligned with hers.
Matt grew up in Kerrville. He too came from a very religious family.
Carrie, she was always the bubbly little blonde and just loved life. People were drawn to Carrie.
She was so funny. And when Carrie laughed, she laughed with her whole body. Everyone in the room just could feel her because she was just so free-spirited.
I don't think there was ever a question Carrie was right or not right for me. It was we moved fast. We met in May and married in August. We tried to talk Carrie into waiting a little longer, and she really did not want to. Carrie was looking for a husband with morals and values that were similar to what she had, and Matt, she believed, had those.
That you may fear the Lord your God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you.
She was marrying a Baptist minister. How good is that? You couldn't pick a better guy than Matt Baker.
Can you say Merry Christmas? No, here, take your pacifier out. Say Christmas. Can you give a kiss?
The kids came quickly.
Oh.
They looked like this perfect young couple with this beautiful baby.
Carrie wanted children. She always had. And she was a wonderful mother.
She feels so pink.
And then Cassidy came. It looked to the outside world like everything was just coming together for the Bakers.
If you know our children, not just my wife Carrie, and it's special for me to do this because they are my children, our children.
Cassidy, hi.
But it was just after Cassidy's first birthday when the family was dealt some heartbreaking news about her.
It turned out that she had a brain tumor. Carrie was devastated, absolutely devastated.
We went to Cook Children's Hospital in Fort Worth. It was a scary time, and she struggled in pediatric ICU for 60 days. They started chemotherapy on her.
They didn't know if she would make it through, but she did.
We get to bring her home. That was one of the happiest days.
She needed a lot of care when she came home, but she was expected to recover.
The Academy Awards were playing that night, and I remember staying up watching that. I went in and checked on Cassidy. She was fine. I gave her a kiss and said a prayer. Checked on their older sister. Kissed her, said a prayer, and went to bed.
A little while later, he got back up and went and checked on her a second time. This time he started screaming. Carrie jumped up, ran into the room, found Cassidy, and she wasn't breathing at all.
I yell at my wife as I'm taking her out of the bed, and I put her on the floor and I begin CPR. She calls 911.
Brought Cassidy to the hospital, but they weren't able to save her. Cassidy died.
I know we dealt with it differently. We would have discussions about it and pray about it. And it was a struggle.
Carrie bled grief after Cassidy died.
And she was having a difficult time sleeping.
Carrie had been taking over-the-counter sleep aid since Cassidy died. She could not calm down at night without sleeping pills.
She started writing journals, and she just poured out incredible sorrow. She thought she saw Cassidy wherever she went.
It was horrible. What helped Carrie, in addition to her faith and her family, was she saw a grief counselor for a year. She talked things through.
The death of a child always puts a terrible strain on a marriage. Carrie really fought to keep that marriage together. She loved Matt. She wanted it to work out.
I just told Carrie that men and women often grieve in different ways.
In time, the Bakers and their daughter try to move ahead with their lives.
It was a year and a half after Cassidy's death. Carrie found out that she was pregnant. Carrie said that the baby was coming by the grace of God.
There was definitely a fear in my wife that I had not seen before. A fear of what if. I lost one, what if we lose another one? I can't handle that.
She loved her girls, and she was so strong for them. Cassidy's life was cut short, but she had them.
The four of them looked like this perfect little family. You would think, oh, look, they just have it all.
EMS, what's your emergency?
Almost exactly 7 years after the death of her daughter Cassidy, Carrie is now seemingly lifeless on their bedroom floor, while her husband works to save her.
Do compressions first, okay? Just keep doing compression.
Waco is a great city. It's very religious. You can't walk a block without seeing church.
It's small enough that most people are just a degree or two away from knowing everybody else.
Hewitt, Texas is a suburb of Waco. Back then, maybe 12,000 people. They have their own city, government, police.
And when Carrie and Matt moved in, they quickly became part of the community.
But in early April 2006, right here in the heart of the Bible Belt, a chaotic scene is unfolding inside this house. Local pastor Matt Baker has arrived home to find his wife Carrie unresponsive in their bedroom.
And what's the problem? Tell me exactly what happened.
My wife is laying in the bed, and her lips are blue, hands are cold.
Is she conscious?
No,
Is she breathing?
No, she's not breathing at all. No pulse or anything.
I put my head to her chest and didn't see or feel her chest rising. No air coming out. Felt for pulse. Nothing.
Listen carefully. I need you to get her laying flat on her back on the ground and remove any pillows, okay?
Okay, put her on the floor.
Correct.
On the bed now. Put her on.
All right, she needs to be on the floor, yes, sir.
Okay.
The 911 operator tells Matt to do CPR, to put Carrie on the floor and start CPR.
Do that and tell me when you're done.
Okay, hold on. Hey, hold on. Hold on. Okay, hold on.
I did not want the EMTs to come in and see her naked. And so I put her clothes on her, for her. And as I'm taking her off the bed, fluid comes out of her mouth onto the floor, and it smells of alcohol.
You're going to push down firmly 2 inches with only your lower hand touching her chest. You're going to do it fast and hard 400 times.
400?
400 times is the latest we've been instructed to do, okay?
400.
Twice per second.
Rest it off?
After the 400. You're going to, correct. It's going to be about twice per second. It'll take you about 3.5 minutes to do it, okay? So start right now. I'll tell you when to stop. All right.
While on the phone, Matt asks the 911 operator to call Carrie's parents because he says his daughters are also in the house.
I need to get a hold of her parents. They live in town, and I want them to come over and be with the kids.
Get somebody else started on this, okay?
Thank you.
We received a phone call from the 911 operator telling us that we needed to get over to my daughter's house, that there had been an accident. We needed to get over there immediately.
Oh, she's got foam or something coming out of her nose. Okay, someone's at the front door. I gotta go.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
My name's Michael Irvin. I was a patrol officer with the city of Hewitt, and at that time I had only had about 6 months of actual law enforcement experience. That was the first officer to respond to the house. There was actually an EMT that met me in the front yard. Matt Baker actually met us outside and then walked us in, and he took us straight into the bedroom where his wife was at.
The EMTs go in and they find Carrie on the floor. She's wearing a t-shirt and a pair of underpants.
And they come in and I step away and let them start working.
There was a glass there that was actually still cold, if I remember correctly, which led into his account of what happened that night.
It'd been a typical Friday night that Matt says started with him and Carrie sharing a drink before heading to the local Y.
We had a wine cooler that I purchased, and so she drank one, I drank one. We take our oldest daughter to swim practice that night. On the way, my wife started saying her stomach was hurting her. She just felt nauseated, wasn't feeling very good.
After the family returns home, Matt says Carrie still wasn't feeling well, and after taking a bath, she heads to bed while he starts the bedtime rituals with her daughters.
It's a Friday night, so they could stay up later. They could stay up till 10 o'clock watching TV. Came back, laid down with my wife. She's still in bed, half asleep, and she wants another drink. She has a drink, I have one too. She goes to sleep, wakes up at about 11 o'clock, and asks me to go get a movie. And I was like, it's 11 o'clock. She goes, well, go get this movie for me and gas up, because we have a busy day tomorrow.
He left to go get a movie. While he was gone, came back, and he discovered that he couldn't get back in.
Walk to the bedroom door, and it's closed. And I try the knob, and it's locked. And I knock on it and call her name, Carrie, and there's no response.
Matt says he finds a small screwdriver to try to open the door.
So I pop the lock and open the door and find her in bed. And it was very eerily similar to walking in the room when I found Cassidy.
As EMTs of the Baker residence work on Carrie, police take note of those wine coolers on the bedside table and something else.
There was this bottle of Unistom that it was almost empty.
She had been taking sleeping pills to go to sleep since Cassidy passed away and started taking more and more of them. And we had discussions that you've got to stop doing this. This is too many. This can be dangerous.
We ran out of the car, and as I started running up to the front of the house, an EMT person stood in front of me and grabbed me and told me that my daughter was dead. I just kept saying, there's no way.
There was a piece of paper on the end table, and something didn't sound right. For me, it all pointed back to that note.
A frenzied scene has been unfolding in the middle of the night at the Baker's home. Matt Baker's wife is dead, and there's a note.
On the bedside table, there's a suicide note.
That was the first time that the word suicide entered my mind. I had no idea at that moment what had happened.
In the note, there was a reference to Cassidy. Matt explained to me that Cassidy was their daughter. And it's a very difficult time for Carrie because of the anniversary of Cassidy passing away. The first person I remember showing up after me, I explained all the things that Matt had showed me, and I took a step back.
In Texas, in small counties where they don't have medical examiners, the justices of the peace decide what happens when there's an unexplained or a sudden death.
I do remember that phone call. It was Judge Martin.
They told him they had a suicide note and they had alcohol and that they had pills. And Billy Martin did not order an autopsy.
It was classified as a suicide based on the preliminary investigation and what they saw at the scene.
Police involvement at that point is done.
Carrie Baker's family and her church community are shocked by her suicide.
I hurt for her. I hurt that someone hurt enough that they made that choice.
We're just trying to put one foot in front of the other and get through this. This is...
Less than 1 week after Carrie's funeral, Pastor Matt Baker is back at the pulpit here at Crossroads Baptist delivering the Easter sermon. He tells his congregation that just like Jesus, Carrie has risen up to heaven.
There was always the desire in her to be with a daughter that was in heaven now. And she did voice that several times, that Cassidy needed her. She needed Cassidy.
This was my wife's Bible that she carried for years.
Matt had given her a Bible years earlier, and she started writing her feelings in the margins.
She says, I want to go with Cassidy. She could never let go of Cassidy. It was such a strong hold on her.
The week Carrie died, she had a session with her grief counselor and also saw a doctor who prescribed her medication.
The next day she ripped up the prescription. She wouldn't fill it.
After finding out Carrie died, I had talked to my sister Kay. I just kept saying there's no way.
Carrie would never take her own life.
And then that's when she told me about a visit she got from Joanne.
Joanne Bristol is Carrie's grief counselor and also friends with Carrie's aunt, Kay Bailey.
She had had a session with Carrie earlier that week. She had shared with me what Carrie had shared with her, that Carrie found some crushed pills in Matt's briefcase.
Joanne Bristol also shared that detail and others with police in the days following Carrie's death.
My sister Kay and I, we all started talking, not around Linda, but we all were sitting there going, what are we going to do? Because we knew so much about Matt.
We worked at a church camp together. Matt, I believe, had been written up at that particular camp for harassing girls that I went to school with.
There was also an alleged incident from his college days involving a fellow student.
I was afraid of him. I was angry with him. He took away virtually my young adulthood.
Laura Wilson filed a complaint against Matt, saying he sexually assaulted her.
We were both student trainers for the athletic department. He was a sophomore trainer and I was a freshman trainer.
She was cleaning the bathrooms. Matt came in and offered to help.
He came up behind me, and he pinned my arms behind my back and started trying to kiss me. I kept telling him to stop. He came up from behind me, picked me up, sat me on his lap, and he began running his hand between my legs. I was struggling to get away. He didn't stop with the kiss. He didn't stop with the touching until he was ready to stop. Now, I'm left with myself, violated, in shock, not knowing what to do.
All I can tell you is when she left the facility was in tears, but nothing that I did.
After the assault happened, his words to me were, I never meant to hurt you.
At the time, Laura told a college staffer about the alleged assault. Matt was not disciplined.
I dropped out, dealt with recurring nightmares, dealt with trust issues in relationships. It derailed my life for many, many years. I became a different person.
She eventually filed a report with police years later. They began looking into the allegations, but stopped once they realized the statute of limitations had passed. Matt Baker denies assaulting Laura or harassing any female campers.
Things have been said that can be misconstrued, misinterpreted, but I can't say this, I never accosted anybody.
Throughout Matt and Carrie's marriage, rumors of alleged inappropriate sexual behavior would continue to follow the preacher, but his wife stood by him.
She loved Matt. When Carrie heard allegations that Matt had been inappropriate with young women, she was his staunchest defender. She told one young woman, when you marry a Baptist preacher, women are going to come forward and make false allegations, and you have to protect him.
Carrie believed him, and we believed Carrie. She was telling us the truth, as she knew it.
I think there's a presumption with a man of God that they have a certain character and a certain ethical base, and we believe that.
Linda's sisters had hoped that by talking to her about the various past allegations against Matt, she might start to see him in a different light, but she didn't. She still had faith in her son-in-law.
My sisters came over, and I told them, let's just grieve and let this go.
But the family wouldn't let it go.
It started with the cell phone records.
And Linda soon makes a startling discovery.
Something wasn't right.
years since her daughter Cassidy's death, Carrie Baker was in and out of counseling, dealing with her grief, especially around the time of year when Cassidy died.
Anytime you got to the anniversary of the death of Cassidy or her birthday or holidays, there was definitely a deep sadness.
But there was more going on that year. There was the fact that she was uncertain about her relationship with Matt. She sensed that something was very wrong. After Carrie's death, Linda's sisters sat down with Linda and said, "We don't believe that Carrie committed suicide."
While Linda may have still been processing her daughter's loss, her family's emotions had quickly turned to suspicion.
I remember Nancy saying, "Linda, have you ever considered that perhaps Carrie didn't take her life?" I remember stammering and saying, "Oh, what are you talking about? Murder? We don't think Carrie killed herself. We know she didn't."
The family decides to tell Linda what they say they learned from Carrie's therapist.
Carrie had shared with her that she'd found some crushed pills in Matt's briefcase, and she was afraid that Matt might possibly try to kill her.
She said, "I think Matt's trying to kill me." And then she started laughing and she said, "Oh no, Matt would never do that."
But at the same time, I thought this would make more sense because I knew that Carrie would never take her own life.
I think if truly Carrie went and said that and was fearful for her life, the counselor should have done more and didn't. Looking back, I think it was a scream. At the first scream in a series of screams that took place that week of, "I'm hurting more than you think I am." Murder, I mean, that's just not something that I could wrap my head around. I needed time to think, to process. This was too difficult for me to be able to discuss.
But then shortly after Carrie's death, Linda says she began to notice Matt was keeping her granddaughters away from her. No more babysitting, no more invitations to school events.
At that point, she started to feel a little different. What was going on here and why was this happening?
Linda remembers Matt and Carrie's cell phones were part of her family plan, so she decides to have a look at the phone bill.
The first really odd thing she noticed was that Matt had continued to call Carrie's cell phone weeks after Carrie had died. It made no sense at all, and then it all started to click. Matt's giving Carrie's phone to someone.
I think you said calling all angels, but we all went over to your house. You said, we need to get together and talk.
At that point, Linda started to think that maybe her sisters were right, and maybe they really did need to look into this.
It started with the cell phone. And I immediately figured out it was Vanessa Bowles.
Vanessa Bowles was the daughter of the music minister at Crossroads Church where Matt was the preacher.
The relationship really started between my wife and her. They became friends.
Vanessa had a little girl that reminded Carrie of the baby she had lost.
There were only 3 young families in the church that had small children, so we naturally just kind of congregated together because we had similar interests. We were friends.
Vanessa would later describe in a recorded interview how she says the friendship evolved.
So I just got divorced, and it was nice to have someone, to talk to, who was in a pastoral position.
And she gives her explanation of why she has Carrie's phone.
We were starting to talk and become friends. Then I said, "Don't call my cell because my mom pays for my meds, and I don't want to run over during the day. I've done that many times before." And he's like, "Well, I still have Carrie's phone, so I can give that to you."
Maybe Matt was simply seeking comfort in the friendship of a fellow churchgoer. But for Linda, those phone bills had set off alarm bells.
Linda went to the Hewitt Police Department. She showed them the phone bills, but they weren't interested. This was a done case. It was over as far as they were concerned.
That's when Linda said, "I need my angels over here." I would email them. I would go, "Good morning, angels." She would always tell us, "You need to do this. You need to." And we were investigating.
We did. It was nonstop all the time.
The assignments Linda gave out involved going through the garbage.
And Charlie was doing some digging right alongside her angels as well. She researched whether overdosing on a sleep aid could have really killed Carrie. and she questioned Matt about those alleged crushed pills.
I talked to Matt about the crushed pills. My wife said she found him in my briefcase when she was looking for a pen. She said, well, did a kid where you work put him in your bag?
Matt claims that, unknown to him, some kids at work may have been spitting out pills into his briefcase.
But that seemed odd because the pills didn't look like they'd been spit out.
What he said couldn't have happened.
And so Kay called Judge Billy Martin to find out why he had ruled Carrie's death a suicide.
I talked to him about the suicide note, and he mentioned it being signed, and I said it was not. He goes, well, you need to talk to the police. We've already done this, and we just want somebody to investigate it more.
And it was about that time where Matt's story no longer made sense. There were inconsistencies, outright lies, and we needed more answers.
So following the family's urging, police bring Pastor Matt Baker in for questioning.
Well, I just want to sit and talk to him.
Questions needed to be asked, and questions needed to be answered.
Year-old Carrie Baker has been found dead in her home. It was deemed a suicide by police, but her family began investigating on their own, and they urged police to question her husband, teacher Matt Baker.
I just want to sit and talk to him, I just want to talk about what happened that night. Absolutely. That way we can clear all this up, because I'm sure you know what I'm getting at. Okay, as far as, Linda, you know what I'm saying?
It was a very odd week. But not behavior that would have raised red flags.
Right.
If that makes sense. It was one of those deals that I knew she was depressed.
The conversation continues, with Matt sharing his own view on what he believes might have happened.
I left about 11 or so. I wasn't gone maybe 40 minutes.
You left the house and went down to the gas station?
I wasn't even gone long at all. Okay. And that was the strange thing about it is I question where she would have taken the medicine. Personally, this is my opinion. I don't think the medicine is what killed her. I think she threw up into her mouth, but was knocked out enough and choked on it. So now, I don't know if that's just me trying to put stuff together to make it, I don't know.
Okay. Like I said, that's what I just wanted to sit and holler at you about. One last thing, to kind of quell everything. If I asked you to take a polygraph test, would you be willing to do so? Okay.
Matt eventually passes a polygraph arranged by his attorney. Upset that police continue to consider Carrie's death a suicide, Linda pulls together a team of her own.
Linda ended up making an appointment to talk to a former federal prosecutor.
Now in private practice, Bill Johnston had been a federal prosecutor in Waco, Texas.
The Branch Davidian complex in Waco, Texas goes up in flames.
11 of the survivors now face murder and conspiracy charges in connection with the killing of 4 federal agents.
And in 1993, he was part of the team prosecuting the 11 surviving Branch Davidians.
Those agents did not die in vain. Mrs. Dillon came to me, and she said, I've heard maybe you can help me.
She explained to Bill that she doesn't believe her daughter took her own life, so she'd been working on Carrie's case with her angels.
What Charlie's angels were bringing to us was invaluable. They were this group of strong women who were not going to just let this go. They brought a series of stories about Matt's conduct at different points in his life.
Bill pulled together his own posse. He brought together retired lawmen to take over this investigation.
I called them my guys, and they became as invested in this case as if they were fighting for their own child.
The biggest thing was to get the body exhumed, get an actual autopsy, and find out what had actually happened to Carrie Baker, how she'd actually died.
We started unraveling this thing bit by bit by bit.
Matt Coffon is a member of the legendary Texas Rangers. He joins the team and reviews the evidence on the case.
There are red flag after red flag that something was not right. It was so compelling that I could not automatically agree with the Hewitt police investigation. So I thought, okay, let's kind of break it down.
You're presented with a crime scene that's not really a crime scene, right?
These are photographs As you can tell, there's just not much to them. There were so many things early on in this investigation that just did not match. And part of it was Matt Baker's explanation of his timeline.
He says he left and then he came back, and it was such a short time that she couldn't have died within that period.
That was the theory that we were operating on. His timetable did not really match up. This is an overall view of Hewitt, Texas, and it's not large.
And these locations are very close to each other.
Minutes apart, especially that time of night.
The team was also troubled by Carrie's suicide note, which Officer Michael Irving says was pointed out by Matt.
He just said, there's a suicide note, suicide note, suicide note. So he did direct me to know.
The so-called suicide note was typed.
It's not signed, and that should be a red flag to any investigator. Let's take this a little bit further. It says, tell my mom and dad that I love them too. In this case, two is T-O, not comma, T-O-O.
She was a teacher. She could spell.
Yes.
Something didn't set right. And for me, it all pointed back to that note, that suicide note. I didn't speak up. At that time, I've been a police officer for 6 months. If I could go and turn back time, there are a lot of things I would have done different.
Was there an autopsy done initially?
There was no autopsy done. And so at this point, we decided that we needed to have tissue samples from Carrie's body, so we wanted to have that body exhumed.
At the time of the Hewitt police investigation, they concluded Carrie had died by suicide of over-the-counter sleep medication.
One of the tasks that Linda took on for herself was investigating Unisom. She found that it would have taken a great deal to have caused Carrie's death, and that she wouldn't have died quickly.
We came up with clues that made us believe that perhaps there were prescription medications given to her without her knowledge.
Nearly 4 months after Carrie's death, the Texas Rangers, in conjunction with Hewitt Police, are able to get Judge Martin to sign an order allowing for the exhumation of Carrie's body.
As we gathered information from various sources, determined we need to go that route.
By this time, we were working pretty closely with a detective at the Hewitt Police Department.
It was critical that they had an autopsy.
We had a lot of circumstantial evidence, but we needed some scientific evidence, something that a prosecutor can hold in their hands and say, okay, now we may have something here.
What else would the Charlie's Angels of Waco and their investigative team learn?
A photograph was found on Matt Baker's computer. He tried to delete it.
We didn't know if she might have even been involved.
Was Carrie's death a terrible tragedy or something much more sinister?
A manipulative liar wearing the mask of God came into my life.
The Hewitt preacher's wife was found dead. Her death originally ruled a suicide. But is that how the mother of two really died?
Maybe someone had held that coarse material against her nose.
I think Carrie, on some level, understood that she was in danger.
But you also discover in that Bible, the Lord, I'm asking you to protect me from harm.
He's having a conversation with the 911 operator, and he's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way.
You don't quickly dress a dead body.
Here's a picture of Matt Baker. Is this the other woman?
I'm going to tell what you did. And he said, you better not do that.
Sometimes faith can be used to manipulate and to control people.
Preachers, the good ones are great. The bad ones have the most power of anybody.
Here they were, the police, in the home of a Baptist minister with a suicide note and sleeping pills and a bottle of alcohol. Well, the police at that point aren't thinking murder. They're thinking that Carrie committed suicide.
Texas pastor Matt Baker had lost a young daughter years earlier. He now appears to be facing yet another tragedy, the suicide of his wife, Carrie. But her family isn't buying it.
I knew that Carrie would never take her own life. We will fight for the truth.
Could Carrie have been murdered? The Hewitt police, now collaborating with Texas Ranger Matt Coffon, who's been working with Carrie's family, obtained an order to exhume Carrie's body. And the autopsy results are now in.
in her muscle tissue, there was a presence of Ambien. And that was huge. Huge.
And at the time of her death, she didn't have a prescription for Ambien.
No.
The autopsy now lists Carrie's manner of death as undetermined.
Now you're in undetermined land. Now you're in a mystery. Now let's solve the mystery.
Bill Johnston and his team continue to dig, now taking a closer look at those few crime scene photos.
What's this?
This is a picture of Carrie's arm. And what you're seeing here is you're seeing the beginning of lividity, the purplish color from the pooling of the blood. You know, when the heart pumps, it pumps through the veins and the arteries. When the heart stops, everything settles to its lowest point. It's gravity. We have lividity set in the body, and that takes time. And this was a problem with Bill Johnston and his team.
And so we found the person who wrote the book on crime scene reconstruction, Tom Bevel.
The first responders from the medical field are saying that lividity either was setting in or set, which in that time frame, that's a problem.
So this is their home right there. Right?
Yeah, this is their home. So if he leaves his house at 11, 45 to 55 minutes later, lividity could not have been set in as it was in the photographs, all right?
Cawthon and the team believe that Carrie was likely dead before Matt Baker left his home. So if Carrie's suicide was a homicide, how was she killed? The photograph showed something more.
In one of the photographs, there is a small abrasion that is to the bridge of her nose.
We surmised that this was very likely done using a throw pillow off of a couch. It was kind of a coarse material that very likely could have caused an abrasion.
Indicating that maybe someone had held that coarse material against her nose.
That's right.
The abrasion on Carrie's nose, it's not noted in the autopsy, but the presence of the generic form of Ambien is. So Bill Johnston wants to look into Matt's digital trail. He sues Matt for wrongful death and obtains access to his computer records.
A month before Carrie's death, they discovered Matt was on the computer searching for the term overdose by sleeping pills.
I did search that. I did research to see, can you overdose? Is that even a possibility that I need to worry about? My wife overdosing on sleeping pills.
As they continued to go through the computer, they found where he tried to buy Ambien, had moved it into a cart to purchase it.
And that bit of forensics in the computers now hard linked into the toxicology forensics. Our theory became, the Ambien in the wine cooler, he got her sleepy with that so he could later suffocate her. That was our theory.
And remember those writings in Carrie's Bible about Cassidy? Well, those were written years earlier, but there was a recent troubling entry dated just 5 days before Carrie's death, which says, I feel like I have so much worry. Lord, I'm asking you to protect me from harm. I am not sure what is going on with Matt. What does that indicate?
It's ominous. It's almost like she is afraid of him.
Looking back on it, they were predictive.
I think Carrie, on some level, understood that she was in danger, and she didn't realize that at that point that he was involved with somebody else.
During this investigation, we got a clue from a woman who worked in a jewelry store and said within a couple of weeks after Carrie's death, Matt Baker comes into the jewelry store with a woman, and they're looking at engagement rings.
No, we were not. One of the rules for our kids was when they turn 6 years old, they can get earrings. And so we began looking for jewelry, earrings.
Here's a picture of Matt Baker. Is this the other woman?
This is Vanessa Bowles. She was the other woman. Now, this is a photograph that we found on his computer in trash.
We knew there was going to be a birthday party, and we took a picture of all the girls and Matt and Vanessa.
It wasn't long after Carrie's death when people came over. They didn't see any pictures of Carrie at all, but there was a picture of Vanessa with the girls. 2 of Carrie and Matt's friends came to help with the party, and one of them stayed overnight, and she saw Matt sitting on the couch with Vanessa's head on his lap.
To Carrie's family, it was clear that a romantic relationship had developed between Matt and Vanessa. 4 months after Carrie's death, police believe Vanessa Bowles just might be the key to solving this case. So they bring her into the Hewitt police station for questioning.
It's just scary.
Sorry, keep waiting. Like I said, I'm going to ask you some questions about that, Carrie.
Okay.
It just doesn't mean the truth. Okay?
I'm sorry, this is just scary.
I know.
4 months after Carrie's death, Vanessa Bowles, the woman who appears to have become romantically involved with Matt Baker, is now sitting at the police station, answering questions about how that relationship unfolded.
Every once in a while, he started calling just to chat, just kind of asking about my divorce and, kind of saying how, God would work everything out.
How long was that it took it to progress to him calling a couple times a day?
I want to say a couple of weeks. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't nice to have someone who, had 2 daughters and would possibly, be the dad to my child.
Sure. Having an affair that predated the killing, that would be big evidence.
Did you ever meet him romantically?
No.
Never? Okay.
After, yes. After his wife passed away.
Okay.
Because I didn't think there was anything wrong.
2020 obtained emails, never before broadcast, that show Carrie and Matt's relationship unraveling in the weeks before Carrie's death, at the same time as Matt and Vanessa's phone calls start to heat up.
She sensed that something was very wrong.
In one of those emails, Matt blames Carrie for Cassidy's death, writing, "You wanted her to be pain-free," and then telling her, "Your prayer was the one that was answered."
That made her angry, and she was going to leave him. I suggested they get counseling.
Back in that police interview, Vanessa, who at this point had broken things off with Matt, seems open to believing he could have murdered Carrie.
Do you think that he had anything to do with her death?
I think anything's possible now.
The Hewitt preacher's wife was found dead in her home. Death originally ruled a suicide. But now, nearly a year and a half later, a judge has set a hearing to try to determine if that is how the mother of 2 really died.
A formal inquest into Carrie's death was held, but in the end, the justice of the peace, who initially declared it a suicide, made the same determination that the autopsy had made a year earlier.
That Carrie Lynn Baker's manner and cause of death shall be recorded as undetermined.
So what do? And at some point, we have to do what we think is right. And in this case, it was to get a arrest warrant for Matt Baker.
Even though it wasn't ruled a homicide, nearly a year and a half after Carrie's death, Matt Baker is arrested for her murder.
Matt Baker is accused of drugging his wife Carrie with sleeping pills and then suffocating her with a pillow.
There's no way that he could take a life. And I know my sons, and I just don't believe he could do that.
And we have breaking news for you now from the McLennan County Jail.
Matt Baker could be released any time now. His $200,000 bond has been paid in cash.
My best decision was to move away from there and to move back here to my hometown, where I felt support and felt loved.
And it's in Kerrville, about 200 miles from Hewitt, that our cameras catch up with Matt and his daughters.
This is a little bit of everything. They have a cafe where they take flowers and they crush them up and pretend it's chicken noodles.
Don't be embarrassed.
2020 gets a glimpse of life with their father.
Everything to do is play with my dad.
After losing their mother.
Each have their own,
Mine, hers.
and they separate pants from shirts.
I pick mine and then he picks hers.
But I have to okay hers.
Yes.
Why?
Because she likes spaghetti straps.
But I don't wear them to school. I'm not allowed.
And during this last year, he was a single parent, working and taking care of his girls. They emotionally attached to their dad very strongly, the younger one especially.
This is my favorite toy because it used to be my dad's when he was a little kid.
Once Matt was released, he went on kind of a press tour.
He tried to tell the world his side of the story.
Would Matt Baker have the nerve to actually interview for and do a photo shoot with Texas Monthly? Yes, he would.
Pretty much anybody who wanted to talk with him, Matt Baker had an open door.
Tonight on 2020, was it suicide or murder?
The story goes national, and Matt Baker sits down with 2020 for an interview. He proclaims his innocence and denies he had an affair with Vanessa Bowles.
It was a friend. It was a very good friend. But there's nothing there now. I don't believe in adultery. I don't believe in divorce.
The problem was that for him was that he changed his story a little bit every time he gave one.
Matt tells 2020 that it was the police who found that suicide note.
One of the police officers found it and handed it to me. And I held it in my hands for a brief moment, and I looked at the first line, and I handed it back. I said, I can't read it right now.
But listen, as Matt refers to that suicide note in his 911 call.
My wife is laying in the bed, and her lips are blue, hands are cold, and there's a note that says, I'm sorry, basically.
And there's no way I could ever have hurt my wife. I loved her. She's the mother of my children, and I miss her, and I did not hurt my wife.
We felt validated with the arrest, but I'm going to tell you right now, all the arrests in the world mean nothing without a good prosecution.
The Texas Rangers made an arrest on the case, and the case was then transferred to our office. And I believed that Matt had killed Carrie, but I didn't feel like that we had the proof to take it to a trial and get a conviction.
If you get an acquittal, it's over.
6 months after Matt Baker's arrest, the murder charge is dismissed after prosecutors failed to indict him.
It was frustrating, but we knew it would take time and we weren't going to stop.
People started running around town with bumper stickers that said "Justice for Carrie." Love trumps evil was underneath it.
We had truth on our side. We had God on our side.
We had Bill Johnston, and we were going to continue civilly.
His story was not adding up anymore. He wouldn't have left those two girls there if he didn't think it was safe.
And would Matt's account of what he says he did when he found Carrie check out?
He's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way, John. I just don't.
When the criminal case was stalled and it wasn't going forward, Bill Johnston filed a wrongful death case, and that allowed him to subpoena Matt Baker for a deposition.
His little lower left of the
2.5 years after the death of his wife, Matt Baker is on the hot seat, answering questions under oath about the night she died.
About 10:45-ish, a little before 11, she asked me if I could run a couple of errands.
Had she sort of refreshed herself and gotten away and got forward thinking by that time?
It was still kind of that half awake, just talking, but still kind of real drowsy.
I'm conjecturing that it went through his mind that maybe she already took all the sleeping pills before he left. Was she aware enough that you could observe that she could handle if the kids needed her, for instance?
I would have, yeah, I felt that she probably could.
She had to be fine, or else she was incapacitated. He was a bad father, and he just left his girls with an incapacitated person. Which one is it, Matt? So he chose the high road, that yes, Carrie was fine. So if Carrie's fine, she's not getting ready to die.
Bill was able to ask him question after question after question and get answers from him that were very helpful.
While you had the phone pressed against your shoulder, you put on her panties first, is that correct?
I believe that's right.
And what did you do?
And I put on her shirt.
Okay, and she's on the bed at this time?
Correct.
But Matt had told police a different version of how he dressed Carrie that night.
So I put the panties on her in the bed as I was getting her out, and then when she was on the floor, I put her shirt on.
The clothing, it appears consistent, especially her panties, as to how you would typically find if they were put on by the individual, not somebody else, with a lady who is not able to assist.
If he would lie about dressing her, why? And he wanted to explain their body was cold by saying she was nude on top of the bed. as if she would have aired out and cooled off. Just a stick figure, but where she came to rest once you moved. How difficult was that to move her?
I guess at the time you don't even think about it. You just do what you have to do.
Wanted to know if Matt's story holds up, so we asked Texas Ranger Matt Cawthon to put it to the test with a dummy roughly the same weight as Carrie's at the time of her death.
He would have had to reposition the body. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think it happened that way, John. I just don't.
How much time would he have had to do this between the call to 911 and the chest compressions?
About 2 minutes.
To dress her, put her body on the floor, all while on the phone with 911. We're going to see if you can do this. I'm going to put a stopwatch to it, and here we go. You're doing it as fast as you can.
Well, I'm doing the best I can. I feel the phone about to fall.
We're at 48 seconds now. We're about 1:20.
He's having a conversation with the 911 operator, and he's not winded, and he's perfectly calm while he's talking to the 911 operator.
That's 1:57 seconds. And then
just to get her dressed. That doesn't include the removing from the bed and the chest compression.
And I know how to do CPR.
Oh, you do?
And listening to the 911 call, it sounded phony.
Do I need to go unlock the front door?
I'll let you know when they start getting close, okay?
Okay.
I think he'd give himself an Oscar, and I'd give him a Rotten Tomato.
Just keep doing compression.
I would not have known at the time when I got there that he had been doing CPR.
You still doing compressions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. He did not sound winded on the phone.
No, not at all. He didn't have to do chest compressions because she was already dead. He killed her, I think, before he left to go run alibi errands.
Despite Matt's inconsistencies, prosecutors feel they need more, so they bring in a new detective to help with the investigation.
My name is Abden Rodriguez, and in 2009, I was a criminal investigator for the McLennan County District Attorney's Office.
I hear they call you the human lie detector?
I guess because of some of the confessions that I was able to get.
Abdon is asked to review the case and find evidence that would help indict Matt Baker.
I wanted to look at the interviews that had been done. There was a lot of deception, and I could see how, especially Vanessa, was doing it.
How many times a week would you talk, do you think, prior to her? Once a day for a couple hours, maybe midday, or
sometimes a couple times a day.
As you can see, she's got her arms crossed and her legs crossed. That's a big red flag to me.
When she passed away that week, how were the conversations? Were they kind of the same way they were before?
They were really the same.
And I told him, and I said, look, the whole key to this case is going to be Vanessa Booth, which is pretty and very smooth and friendly, but at the same time, you know she's a liar.
We didn't know if she might have even been involved.
After interviewing Vanessa, Abdon decides to subpoena her to testify in front of a grand jury.
I said, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to listen to your testimony. And I said, and as soon as you lie, I'm going to file charges on you.
When they brought Vanessa Bowles in for the grand jury, that was kind of a last-ditch effort.
So we're like, okay, let's see what happens.
She and I were walking down the hall. She whispered to me, I'm going to tell y'all everything.
Behind closed doors, Vanessa Boole's grand jury testimony is the last step in getting Matt Baker indicted.
A former preacher charged with the murder of his wife.
Finally, Vanessa's testimony is the smoking gun.
It was. She had everything we needed.
The civil case was dropped at that point in order to let the criminal case continue.
Matt Baker is charged with first-degree murder, accused of drugging and suffocating his wife Carrie and making it look like a suicide. He pleads not guilty. Now, 4 years after his wife's death, Matt Baker is on trial for her murder.
That first day of the trial, the gallery was full.
We have a lot of people here in the gallery today.
True crime author Catherine Casey was in the courtroom every day.
I followed this story from the first time it hit the Texas newspapers. It was just so fascinating that this had unfolded, especially in Waco, in this city that's just dominated by religion.
Prosecutors began poking holes in Matt's story from that night, starting with a 911 call and his claim that he performed CPR on Carrie.
We're going to go ahead and do compressions. You're going to do it fast and hard 400 times. 400? 400 times.
Did any police officers arrive before you?
I was the first one there.
What did he tell you?
He pulled her off the bed and put her on the floor in order to do CPR.
And what was his demeanor?
Very calm.
Did that strike you as odd?
Yes. Even as a police officer, I would not be as calm as he was that night.
There was no way that in that period of time he was able to move her, dress her, and was doing CPR while he was having this conversation.
He wasn't sweating. He did not seem to be in any type of physical distress.
The computer expert found incredible evidence regarding searches, regarding suicide, regarding sleeping pills, and regarding Ambien, which became critical.
Can you tell the jury what was extracted from the muscle tissue of Carrie Baker?
We found 3 different drugs, phentermine, diphenhydramine, and zolpidem. And then zolpidem, in its common name, is Ambien.
We never were able to determine where he got the Ambien from.
But we were able to determine that he was going to these websites and that he had gotten as far as putting Ambien in a cart.
Defense attorney Guy Gray pointed out that there was no evidence that Matt actually ordered Ambien from that website.
They went through the process of looking at it, but it was aborted and no purchase of Ambien was made.
Correct. Yes.
No further question.
You state your name for the jury, please.
Joanne Bristol.
Joanne Bristol, Carrie's grief counselor, testified about those comments she says Carrie made about Matt.
She said, "I'm thinking my husband is going to kill me," but she recanted the statement.
How do you analyze that, or what do you think about that?
I felt at that time that I knew this client very well. She had never misled me, and so when she said, "Oh, but I know he wouldn't do that," I believed her.
You didn't advise her to leave the house or move out. You didn't call law enforcement. You took that recanting as an accurate or true reflection of what was going on.
For her, yes.
Day 4 of the trial, and it's the prosecution's star witness, who everyone is waiting to hear.
This case was one of those cases where all of the attention is focused on one witness, and that one witness was Vanessa Bowles.
The state calls Vanessa Bowles. I remember looking at Matt more than looking at the jury. I wanted to see his response, and I think he was stunned.
After years of denying their affair, Vanessa now admits that Matt began to pursue her even before Carrie died.
Please have a seat.
He started asking me things about my divorce and started telling me whoever finds you is going to be a lucky man.
Did he say anything else unusual to you?
He came by and was kind of smiling. He said, "Oh, don't date other guys, just date your pastor," and kind of smiled.
Did he say anything else after that?
He said, "Will you really date your pastor? I've had a vasectomy, so I can't get you pregnant. Also, I don't have any STDs." And he also started telling me that because of Carrie's depression, as he stated, their sex life had been lacking.
And at the time, were you buying into what he was telling you about Carrie?
I was buying into everything. He was a complete, and still is, a manipulative liar who took me in my vulnerable state and made me believe everything he said.
What happened then in early March as you and Matt started to spend Fridays at the Baker home?
And he asked if he could hold my hands to pray, and he did. Then afterwards, he started to kiss me. Then he just took my hand and led me to the bedroom.
Feeling guilty about being with her pastor, Vanessa says that Matt tried to reassure her.
I was extremely remorseful. I couldn't believe what just happened. And he started saying, "It's okay, don't feel bad, just ask God to forgive you." And he said, in reality, he said, "I don't think God believes that anyone can just be with one person the rest of their lives."
After Carrie's death, Vanessa says Matt wanted more, perhaps even making her the next Mrs. Baker.
At some point, did you and Matt take the girls and go to K Jewelers in the mall?
We did. He stated that the girls wanted to go look at wedding rings for me.
Are you telling the jury that he was prepared at this point, a week or two after Carrie's death, to trade in Carrie's wedding set to get you a ring that you wanted?
Correct.
Matt had denied this in interviews, but a salesperson from the jewelry store corroborated Vanessa's account.
She tried on about 4 or 5 rings, asked his opinion. He just would tell her it didn't matter what he liked, it was what she liked, because she would be the one wearing it.
Vanessa then drops a bomb when she says not only did Matt want out of his marriage,
He said that if we ever fell so much in love that he would find a way out of it.
she also knows what happened to Carrie Baker.
I told him, tell what you did. And he said, you better not do that.
Vanessa testifies that Matt was openly plotting Carrie's death.
At what point did he start talking about planning her murder?
It was sometime mid-March. He said that, she took sleeping pills every night, so maybe he could make it look like she overdosed on sleeping pills.
Vanessa Bowles talked about how Matt had ruminated about all the different ways he might kill Carrie.
He talked about making it look like she'd hung herself. He talked about tampering with the brakes of her car, maybe doing a drive-by shooting.
What I saw from Vanessa's testimony was a man who was much more evil than even I believed he was.
She testified that Matt planned to kill Carrie with a tainted milkshake and then craft a suicide note.
1 to 2 weeks before Carrie's death, did he tell you that he had in fact tried that?
He did. He sent an email and said she took a sip of it and said that it tasted like lead. And so then he said he took a drink and said, oh, well, the ice cream must have been bad. He mentioned that he would leave a note, and he said that he would type it. And I said, that's never going to work. You're going to be caught. And he said, oh, no, she types everything.
Did he say something else about he believed other people thought about her mental state?
Oh, he said that no one would question it because of how depressed she was.
Vanessa stuns the courtroom when she says Matt Baker told her how he killed his wife.
He had gotten big horse pills. He said he emptied out all the contents and put crushed Ambien in them. He said he handcuffed her to the bed, started kissing her and touching her all over until she fell asleep. Then he said he got the pillow and put it over her face.
What did he say happened next?
He said that he thought she was dead, and he just said she just took one big ass for air, and he said, oh, and then put the pillow back on her face, except he did this with his hand to be sure that he suffocated her.
He didn't even feel enough remorse when he realized that she was still alive to rethink it. He just wanted to finish the job.
He said he typed out the suicide note, printed it, got her hand, and he said that he ran her hand all around the sides of it and put her fingerprints all over it. He said that he set everything up, locked the door, and left.
What was the reaction in the courtroom to Vanessa's testimony that not only did Matt Baker kill his wife, but that he had been planning it?
He had planning it, and the things that he did, people couldn't believe it. I think the more surprising thing was that they couldn't believe that she said they're telling all this.
So you knew that Friday, April 7th of 2006 was the day that he was going to try it again?
I knew he was going to try it then, yes.
All right. And you didn't report that to anybody?
No.
Vanessa says she had second thoughts about Matt and the cover-up of Carrie's murder.
Not only had I known about this and not done the right thing, in truth, who would believe me? He was a preacher. And so I felt like I was stuck.
She then chose to break it off with him.
I decided that I didn't care what he told me anymore, that we didn't worship the same God. So I called him. I told him I never want to see you again. And he became irate. He started saying, I killed my wife for you, and now you're leaving.
In a move Vanessa believed was meant to intimidate her, she testifies that Matt sent her an MP3 of a song called Dirty Little Secret.
He was talking about the murder plan, and he later referenced it, stating, I need to keep my mouth shut, don't tell anyone, or you'll be just another regret.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
The defense pressed Vanessa on why she was now coming clean about everything.
How would we know to believe you, Vanessa?
Because what do I have to gain from this right now? I'm setting things right. I made a mistake here because a manipulative liar wearing the mask of God came into my life. And this testimony is going to put him where he needs to be.
It's now up to the jury to determine where Matt needs to be.
Folks, we can't protect her from harm. The only thing now we can do is give her justice. Then turned and pointed to Matt and said to convict this murdering minister and find him guilty for one reason only, because he is guilty.
The indictment says there's got to be facts of drugs and a pillow. And the only way you can get those facts is by believing Vanessa Bulls. And she is just not credible.
I think a lot of people struggled with Vanessa.
I mean, she had done horrible things, but I think it really helped her credibility when she was on the stand because she didn't try to fade her own culpability.
I think Vanessa was absolutely the key to the case.
Reached a unanimous verdict, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Matt D. Baker, guilty of the offense of murder as alleged in the indictment.
For the sentencing phase of the trial, the jury gets to hear additional testimony.
They came back and had witnesses from his past come and talk to us about things that he had done.
One by one, women testify about sexual misconduct they say endured from Matt Baker.
He came up from behind me, put his hand on my breast. I pushed him away, told him no. He tried to kiss me, told him no.
I remember having to use all my strength to try to keep him off of me and from taking my clothes off.
Including Laura Wilson, the student trainer who worked alongside him in college.
He took his hand and began running up my thigh and between my legs.
I think as a jury, to see, what all he's been doing since he was a teenager made us 100% feel like that we had definitely made the right decision.
The jury sentenced Matt Baker to 65 years in prison, and finally Carrie's mother has a chance to confront him directly.
I'm talking to you, Matt, today, okay? You haven't looked at me in almost 4 years. Can you look at me today?
So what does Matt have to say from behind bars?
Yeah, we asked him to give the call.
It's a sentence of the court that you be confined for a term of 65 years. There's some victim impact statements given by the family of the victim. You may proceed.
I'm talking to you, Matt, today, okay? You haven't looked at me in almost 4 years. Can you look at me today? For a little while, okay?
But she did talk to him directly, and he looked down.
Matt, she loved you. And then you took her from us, Matt. You discarded her like she was yesterday's trash. You murdered the mother of your children. But love trumps evil.
I don't know why, but I felt pity for him.
I truly believe in my innocence. I believe the jury made a mistake in this.
After his sentencing, 2020 speaks with Matt Baker again, this time in prison, where he finally admits to his affair with Vanessa, but continues to maintain his innocence.
I'm coming clean on the lying about Vanessa. I made a mistake. I'm human. I made a mistake there. I should not have ever got involved in that. I was having a tough spot in my marriage, and I took the chicken way out. But I would never have hurt my wife. I never did. I never laid a hand on her, ever.
Their mother was erased from them. They need to know she loved them. And she didn't leave them by choice.
A year and a half after Matt's conviction, Linda was given custody of her granddaughters.
It was a long journey for the girls to understand what had actually happened to their mother.
Carrie Baker didn't kill herself. She was murdered. He was a Baptist pastor, preacher. He was a predator.
I think he's a dark angel.
That you may fear the Lord your God.
You get to be the hero during daylight and sneak around in the dark and be evil.
What do you make of the fact that now, nearly 20 years after the case, Matt Baker still maintains his innocence?
He's one of those people that can just lie and believe in himself that he's innocent.
in this is Linda Doolin. She fought for her child.
A mother. A mother's will.
It's strong.
Determination.
There's nothing like it, really.
It touches you.
It does.
Why?
Because I have children. And these are hard things. Linda Doolin is a brave, strong woman. I'll always admire that about her.
We love each other, and we knew Carrie did not take her life, and we weren't going to sit back until somebody would listen to us.
She was an amazing mother. She would fight for any of us. And I just wanted everybody to know the truth.
Carrie's family is still so heartbroken over their loss, but committed to remembering the joy she brought them all. We should point out tonight that Matt Baker hasn't seen his daughter since he went to prison, but he hopes they'll visit one day.
As for Baker, David, he has exhausted all of his state appeals. For an inside look at tonight's 2020, join me for our brand new podcast, 2020, The After Show. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir from all of us here at 2020 and ABC News. Good night.